I wanted to speak with you about coronavirus, or COVID-19 as it's also known. I know these are very uncertain times and that's causing a lot of concern for people. But what we need to do now is act together as a community to prevent the spread, to ensure that we protect people from becoming sick. I've raised with the Premier today the need to consider requiring people coming to Tasmania to self-isolate for 14 days to protect as many people of the Tasmanian community as possible. Appropriate exemptions for freight and trade would of course need to be provided for. I've also asked him to make sure there are adequate supplies of personal protective equipment for those who are working on the front line, particularly our health staff, to make sure they've got the gloves and the gowns and the masks they need so they can treat us while they stay safe. This includes providing protective equipment for our cleaners in our schools so they can keep our kids safe too. This brings me to the issue of school closures. We raised with the Premier today the need to clearly communicate with parents and the school community about what the government has planned, to make sure that schools are prepared to provide resources to students so that they can study at home and that parents are supported in this endeavour, and that if they're planning to close schools, they announce that so parents can make provisions and plan for that sooner rather than later. It's also really important at this time that we look after those who are vulnerable in our community. We've asked the government to consider providing care packages to those who are self-isolated at home, who need to make sure that they've got food to eat and look after themselves without the concern that they might have to go into the community. It's more vital now than ever before that we come together as a community. We will be able to support one another throughout this process if we look out for one another. Check on your neighbours, make sure they've got what they need to get through this, particularly if they're elderly, if they're disabled, or if they've got an underlying health condition. Make sure that they know they should self-isolate and support them to do that. As a community, we can get through this, but we must look after one another to do that. It's unfortunate that the communication from the government has been inadequate at times and there have been mixed messages, and we're urging them to clearly communicate the decisions that are required for people to take to keep themselves and the community safe. I urge you to contact the Public Health Hotline if you've got any particular questions, or contact us. Your Labor members are here and willing to help you and help you navigate what can be a very challenging and uncertain time. And we stand ready to work with the government on any of the measures that are necessary to keep Tasmanians safe. So please look after one another and look out for one another, because together as a community we can get through this.